Welcome to the commARCH Weekly podcast series, a space to share and explore the latest thinking in architecture, building science, materials, and design. Before we begin, please remember to subscribe to one or all of our channels, YouTube, all major podcast platforms, and of course, the commARCH website. In this episode, commARCH has a dialogue with Michael Jansen, the founder and CEO of CityZenith, to discuss the burgeoning landscape of digital twin technologies. Areas covered include an introduction to digital twin technology, including highlighted use cases, a case study in understanding digital twin through CityZenith's Smart World Pro, and a forecast for the future of the digital twin space. Michael Jansen is founder and CEO at CityZenith. An impassioned architect, urbanist, and entrepreneur, Michael has founded and led high-growth companies in the US and Asia for more than 2 decades. Featured on a range of news networks and publications worldwide, Michael has received several awards for his work, including the 40 Under 40 accolade from Building Design and Construction. Thank you for joining us this week. Let's hop into the podcast.
Thanks for joining me for the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So we have a lot to talk about. And I wanted to get intense.
What's that?
I want to get intense because this is what you're offering. I don't think everybody really understands what you're doing.
I'm pretty sure they don't.
That's what my wife says to me all the time. So I'm thinking we start out just a little bit of your background. Just so, hey, I have credibility.
Yeah.
I know what I'm talking about.
Yes, well, happy to do that. I am an architect by training. I did my undergraduate work in architecture at Yale, and then my postgraduate work in architecture also at Cambridge later. And from there, I graduated right at the beginning of the 90s and went right to China to first study and then eventually practice as an architect in that country when it was really beginning to scale, which was a very exciting time. And from there, I actually moved from China to India in the mid-90s when I was awarded a Fulbright scholarship to go to India to continue my studies of architecture in Asia, but focusing on India rather than China. So by the time I got to like the mid-90s, I had been living the Asia boom for half a decade, and it definitely crept into my bloodstream somehow. I think I just imbibed this atmosphere of when the economies were growing at a crazy pace. In my department, I was actually a student in China the first year. In my department, I would go in one day, come in the next day, and my classmate was gone. Started his own company, gone. Next guy gone, started his own company. So China was exploding, and all these young Chinese entrepreneurs or not entrepreneurs were diving in to the ocean, as they say. They had an expression called xiahai, which means to dive into the ocean.
Cool. And
that is basically, going off on your own, right? As we say over here. And everybody was xiahai, so we were, I was kind of influenced by all that activity around me, and many people would come to me. I had no agenda like that. As a traditional architect, I wanted to design. I wanted to be on that path. I wanted to become a design principal. I wanted to be known for design.
I gotta ask, and I know you for over 10 years off and on, but I've been dying to ask this question. Why Asia? How did you know? How did you know that was the right place to go to?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the truthful answer to that question was that I lucked into it as a result of sheer curiosity. And I did not go to China, although I will tell this story differently later if I ever become famous. I will first tell people that I, had the vision decades in advance, which to some extent I did once I got there. But I discovered a lot of things. But I actually went there because I was interested in Chinese art and architecture and culture. And the real truth is that in my senior year at Yale, I was a student of architecture and painting. And to make money on the side, I worked at an art gallery in town, not on campus. And the curator was a big fan of Chinese art. So in the fall of that year, as I'm getting ready to think about my future, he holds an exhibition of local Chinese artists, and their work is amazing. I meet them all, and I say, I want to learn this, you know. And they tell me the only way you're going to learn this is if you go to China. You can't learn this here. You have to live, breathe, eat, sleep, everything. And you need to go to this place called Hangzhou, which is in the south near Shanghai, where there's a school you should go, where we all went. You should go learn if you're interested. So I ended up devising a way of getting there. And ended up teaching English to make money, and then attending classes out of interest. And then after a year of that, I shifted to Beijing and moved up there to, and it was when I moved to Beijing that I saw China's real expansion happening or unfolding. Before this is 1991 too, even then. And people in Beijing, they behaved differently from the people I knew in Hangzhou. They were business driven, they were organized, it all changed later. You know, Hangzhou later became the home of Alibaba and all that, but at that time, I got exposed to what China was going to become. And to my credit at least, I opened myself up to the possibility that I could have an alternate future, even though I resisted it for many years. But I was darn impressed by the young Asian entrepreneurs, I'll tell you that. So, and I felt if they can do it, well, then why can't I?
I have a fine arts degree in painting, and one of the students was from China, and she would do what I thought were brilliant Maoist-like paintings with like Ronald McDonald and US type people.
Sure.
And taking that style, and I thought they were just over the top, and she exposed us to a lot of what was going on, and it was very interesting.
It was a big experience for me. That the artists, they're very talented, and I saw what was happening. It's interesting to have a different conversation with seeing what's happening with China today, years on, and what's happening in the geopolitical situation around the world. And there's a very different situation today. But to a large extent, I can tell people that I saw that coming 30 years ago. I mean, so there's no mystery here. I was taking trains from Guilin to Kunming, and for 56 hours talking to Chinese people day and night in Chinese about their views and values of the world, of all from China's billionaires to China's peasants. And so I knew this was coming. You know.
That's so fortunate too. But okay, you have credibility now. We've established total credibility.
We didn't even get to my last business, did we?
You're right.
We had. So
keep going.
We were almost there, Dean. But the last piece in the puzzle was what I did after landing in India. Eventually, I started a company called Satelier, which became the largest CAD and BIM outsourcing company of its kind at the time, with over 500 employees, serving half of the world's top 50 architecture and engineering firms. And Sequoia Capital came and invested in that business. You and I met right around that time.
Yeah, it was a great idea.
Oh, it was fun, and I'm really proud of what we did there. And so that then was the last thing I did before coming up to CityZenith.
Okay, so I think like everybody that would be listening to this would be like, oh yeah, I know digital twin. But I think it's like, we know this much and not
Right.
the depth. So
Right.
but let's talk about not necessarily your company yet, but what that technology is and what it can do. Is that okay?
Sure. Well, digital twin technology has been around in different forms for a while. So I think digital twin technology being defined as a more easily understandable category is newer, maybe the past couple of years, 3 years maybe. We began marketing ourselves in this space as digital twin providers 3 years ago, and though we've been in business for 10. So, but digital twins at a high level are virtual replicas, often in 3D, physical assets connected to the data in and around them, more or less. So that can be, you'll hear of digital twins of manufacturing plants and facilities, digital twins of aircraft. In our case, we focus on the building industry, which is commercial architecture, buildings, architecture and design, development, etc., infrastructure. Digital twins, even the medical industry, for twinning organs in advance of surgery, things like that. So all the different types of, and the reason you do this is that you're really creating a virtual replica of something, connecting it to the data around it so you can run analysis on it in ways you never could without it. And the challenge of digital twinning is trying to find the right sort of solution to aggregating those disparate pieces in order to generate those types of outcomes. So you'll see different types of digital twin solutions by different providers, big and small. The big companies that participate in this space include Siemens, GE, Black & Veatch, folks like these that have a lot of manufacturing-oriented types of solutions and others. And then there are companies that are smaller and nimble like us. They're doing specialized things. There's a whole gamut out there. And then there are those that are focused more on just services. So they really kind of come in and manually connect everything together in a building, all of its data to a twin. And others that focus on having a platform that kind of automates that process so you can scale that better. We are more the platform approach at our company, where we spend most of our time and energy, but that is what you see out there in the market.
So what, I guess just to be crisp on it, what's the problem this solves?
The problem it solves is a lack of correlation between disparate data points, which means you can't really optimize different functions because of that. So savings from the deployment of digital twin technologies range from 15 to 25% in terms of operational savings costs. And that could be anything from, in our case, we did a project recently where CBRE was the property manager, and we were connecting 6 different disparate systems in a project overseas into one dashboard, and then correlated the control system that was detecting water leaks to the vendor management system, which was telling the vendor to go come and solve it. So these types of things save time, they save money, they save exposure to risk, all kinds of things. So the better you're able to do that, the more you can make efficient any object. Beyond that, as they get into more sophisticated deployments, you could run scenarios. How do I optimize energy efficiency given these parameters? How do I optimize wayfinding from point A to point B for my employees? How do I, all these different questions. Digital twins have, in theory, limitless use cases. And so when you'll hear of all kinds of use cases, and those will proliferate. I think what we see is most companies that do start down this path, beginning with one or a few use cases and then building out from there. So, for example, this project in Orlando that we're working on, which is a new sports and entertainment district where the Orlando Magic play basketball, really there, we are aggregating a lot of data specific to the user experience, the visitor experience, making it possible for someone to come and visit to get information about almost anything happening in the district, from a twin model which will optimize how they can get to a restaurant, what the view is from their seat in the Amway Center, the closest, best and most optimal way to get to parking, how to find a clinic if they need it. All this type of thing gets consolidated into a single twin model, which you can then basically virtually navigate even before visiting. So they're using it as a way to attract people to downtown Orlando and giving them a single experience tool. It's very interesting stuff. So there are multiple use cases out there for twins themselves, but the premise of what they do, that remains the same.
Okay, so, well, not known for my athletic abilities. So it's like the visualization you would do before a game and thinking out how we're going to play it and keep running it through your head, and doing it ahead of, and doing it now with all the material, so you can do away with waste, be more efficient, better occupant experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there's just a plethora of things that you can do if there's and as I said, the use cases actually, they vary widely. Is it possible to actually share my screen and show something?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, hang on a second.
Let me see how I do it. Wait, I'll just need a second.
I might be able to do that. Watch this. Can you see this?
Yeah, nice.
All right, well, let me walk you through this a bit. This is a digital twin project we did with, as I mentioned just before this, with CBRE and some other folks overseas in the United Kingdom. We were challenged to create a single digital twin interface for this organization that had multiple property management systems that have been deployed in basically a room with multiple rooms in the basement of this building. And this company had 100 properties. It's actually the Aberdeen City Council. So if they solved it in one property, and they solved it in 100 properties, the potential to save money from solving these problems was huge. So this is the twin. This was generated by an actual Revit model. It's kind of a pared down BIM model, if you will, that just has rooms, floors, and often major equipment, but it's uniquely connectable to information. So our platform has both a 3D dashboard and a 2D dashboard here. These are all your control systems and facility systems and alerts and everything happening in the building in one interface. Then we can investigate those spatially. So for example, this is a control system, I think it's called TREM 963, and we can literally point and click on any temperature sensor, thermometer, and you name it, and see a real-time reading. Things like lease management systems. This is the status of existing leases in that building. Which ones are current, which ones are coming due, when they're coming due. That allows you to get ahead of it and actually approach tenants in advance of a lease coming due, etc. And this changes over time, so we attach that to like a time slider feature, which allows you to see how that changes over time. And you can even annotate these digital twin models with things like 3D JPEGs, Matterport models that are really used more for marketing purposes. So a sales crew can take this model and then click on different annotations and show off different aspects of the model itself. They are used as much for energy management as they are security. So you'll see examples here. I think I mentioned the one in which the two systems, the control system and the vendor management system, were connected to save that lag time and efficiency. We also have simple public safety and security cameras, both public and private, that can be aggregated so that it could be used as a kind of command and control center, especially in the time of COVID. That was very important for being able to monitor people in and out of and moving around the building. The CBRE has an office in India, and they were able to even connect that one to this model, so they can actually see all their properties pretty much anywhere in the world. That just gives you a sense of what these things look like. We can show you many similar such projects, but when they actually get deployed, and that's a technology that you play with, and that gets into the world of analysis and prediction and whatnot, but that's what it looks like.
So I had thought of it more as a point in time, but this is actually living with the building indefinitely?
What's that?
So I always thought it was a point in time type project, but it's actually living with the building indefinitely?
Exactly. It lasts over the life cycle of the building. That's the wonderful part. So it gets richer and richer with data like anything else that you use over time. And then that building data gets used for a variety of purposes, from simple archiving to generating analysis to improve performance in various ways. I think you'll end up getting digital twin as a service in the future, where tenants will say, I want to be connected to the digital twin and all of its data, so I can get these performance optimization analytics. I want to get this wayfinding thing. I want to get that. Oh yeah, that's going to come too once all this kind of pans out. So CBRE as a company is already thinking about that. You know, how do we offer this as a service to tenants? Because now you've got all the data. How does that help them? How do we allow them then to use that data for their own purposes?
I don't know if this is going in a creepy direction, but I would think government, local government would want access as well for emergency services and things like that.
Well, sure, we do. Ideally, every city would have a twin that they would be shared. That would be shared by all the departments, where data would be uniquely contributed by everyone from the fire department to the building department, and then they could create use cases to serve various needs. One example is in Orlando. As an adjunct to this project, we're talking to the fire department in Orlando about a digital twin that would allow them to aggregate all the information they have about buildings, so that when they have a situation, they can point and click on a building and blow out a floor and see what's happening there, get information from public databases about when was that building built, what kind of construction, who lives there, so that when they plan a rescue, they've got as much information as possible. And so it's a fantastic use case for this type of digital twin. And literally, you can actually carry it on an iPad in the car, pull up building plans, plan their access and egress routes, everything would be a great use case. So yeah, I think so too, for sure. I think where cities are really at is that it's very much in the experimental phase. There's probably 9 or 10 cities I know about that are doing this around the world. And of course, we hope that expands more and more, but mostly we're seeing it used privately.
Hello, world.
Hi, hey, hello there. Nice to finally meet you face to face.
Let's make a movie.
If you know what.
Was that your digital twin? Was that?
No, I think that was some video from YouTube just popped up from.
Oh,
I didn't turn off the video thing, so.
Is there pardon?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Is there technology or product services being used right now that as a result of using CityZenith, they won't be needed anymore?
Well, I think over time, a lot of things will fall away. I think that a lot of dashboarding type tools, some of the design modeling tools will go away. Some of the asset management tools won't be needed. I think that over time, a lot of this will end up just being native to the digital twin technology itself. Although that will not be, it would not be the case that a digital twin, I think, platform will always do everything. That will not happen. I think that there's there will be specialization to some extent based upon industry because of the technologies that are unique to that industry. So we deal with BIM, GIS, LiDAR, and all that stuff from our world, right? You get into the plant world, there's different kind of ecosystem of tools, which is why I think there'll be different players out there.
It makes logical sense. If anybody who's been following BIM and what its promise was and where this just makes logical next step, right?
It makes sense. Yeah, I think it's just the next thing. Next thing. I think there's a lot of work to getting there, but with countries now establishing national digital twin programs like Australia did, like the UK did, the AIA in America is now working on digital twin standards. So, I think it's getting there. Again, I hope that we as a country, kind of move things forward more quickly, because a chance for us to leapfrog. Unfortunately, in recent years, countries have been leapfrogging us by being able to deploy certain technologies because they're newer and we're kind of stuck with GIS and stuff, other things which are antiquated. Digital twin technology, I believe, is a technology that the United States should lead, right? It would take, I think, a lot of, I think the government would have to then decide that, but we just got our first contract with the U.S. government. We're working with the U.S. Army. So, I think that, it's moving that way. It's moving that way. And so, let's see.
So just because of the time we're living in right now, there's going to be paranoia associated with implementation of it, correct? There's an opportunity where people will be like, no, you're invading my privacy, or you have too much information right there.
I think at a city level, yeah, maybe. Most of our work is private. We work on individual buildings, campuses. We're working for private clients. That surveillance, that type of data is almost never a part of anything we do.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
There are, there's almost never a requirement for that. So it's a small part of any strategy. I think most of what digital twin technology gets used for is simple, straight up performance optimization. If there is any recording of behavior, it would be simply to be able to track the movements of a worker in a factory to figure out how much time it took and how many steps he took so they could optimize it. This is not about Big Brother and someone going to find you at your house. And Yeah, I think that a lot of those fears are there. I have various views on this. I think America is way too sensitive to this type of technology, surveillance specifically, and that to be a more, to go to the next level as a country, we have to realize that we can't continue to have our public services working in the dark constantly. There has to be a new social contract drawn up between government and the governed that will determine how that data gets used. But to say it's wrong to go put cameras there because, and when in areas where crime rates are off the charts and things like this, it's a challenge. I think what has to happen is that there has to be a dialogue where people are allowed the same access. So if you're gonna surveil me, I want to know everything that you know, because whatever you claim, I want to make sure is verified. So there's probably a new type of social contract in our democracy which has to be evolved, which both protects our privacy rights. And by the way, those contracts can say what that data won't be used for, right? But also give us the safety and the optimism, all the things that we need, helping us to, adapt our traffic signals so that we can get faster through town. All this relies on capturing data. So helping us to get from A to B faster, helping us to get to a clinic faster, helping us to figure out where we should be putting grocery stores and hospitals. That's all data driven. So we have to agree on some levels about how to do this correctly. Scrubbing identities, great, do that. But we're going to have to come to a new level of understanding. I lived in China. We don't want to go there. But there is a middle ground in which our democracy will be allowed to thrive, and we'll be allowed to take advantage of the technology that this country's created to optimize and capture and optimize data to our advantage. I think there's a balance in there for us.
That was great. Well, I was just trying to think what would inhibit growth, and that was the only thing I could come up with, because it's going in that it's a natural progression already, isn't it?
Well, if you look at the digital twin market statistics, it was a $4 billion market last year, going to $35 billion in 5 years. That's a crazy growth rate of 45% per year. If a growth rate is 15 to 20%, everyone gets excited. So this is a major growth rate. That's how big the sector is, right? That will encompass a lot of activity. So we as a company are focusing on trying to do the best we can to the buildings and infrastructure sector, energy sectors, really built environment, okay? So, but there will be many other very interesting solutions out there. Too early to predict certain things. We certainly want to see the creation of standards and things like that. But in our time frame, as a pioneer, we really just want to try to get as far as we can. Do as many good projects as we can and set an example.
Great, nice, thank you. So our audience, as you know, architects, owners, developers, how would they interact with you? Who wouldn't be curious right now? What should they do to find out more?
A lot of things. I would say, first of all, check us out on our website at www.cityzenith.com. You can certainly reach out to us directly through the website and by email at info@cityzenith.com. I, of course, I am very active on social media as well. You're welcome to follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram and Facebook. But if you want to reach out to me directly, please ping me on LinkedIn if you don't mind. I respond to my LinkedIn messages all the time from various other professionals. I'm very happy to engage if you are interested in talking to me directly. I'm all about new ideas and meeting new people, so feel free to do that too.
Cool. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you, Dean. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to see you. Have a good weekend.
You too, Dean. Take care.
The commARCH team thanks you as always for joining us for this week's podcast. Please remember to subscribe to the commARCH YouTube channel, follow us on your favorite podcast platform, and take advantage of the commARCH website, where you can access all of these platforms and associated podcast transcripts. Until next time.